Oh, oh man. Man, oh man, oh man. What a weekend it was for not only DFS, but fantasy intervention as a whole. Man, did I enjoy that. What a weekend it was. Now, we sat over here at Fantasy Intervention, Mike and I. We had some fun on Wednesday night, but we really absolutely just crushed. We crushed our picks all up and down the board for our DFS episode on Sunday night, or I'm sorry, on Friday night. I had Bo on and Scott on. We crushed all those picks. We built a dynamic lineup that scored second place in Bo's tournament. So that was exciting too. God, man, we just crushed it all. We crushed it all. It was too much fun. It was way, way too much fun. And yeah, I enjoyed every second of it, guys. I enjoyed every second. So tonight, or today, I should say, I'm here to discuss with you guys the DFS slate for tonight. And if you guys listen to my individual game slate, you guys know how much effort and how much detail actually goes into actually putting together this podcast, in this episode. So unfortunately, with the game being rescheduled with Kansas City and New England, I'm not going to be covering that. It is just going to be primarily the Packers and the Falcons game. And yeah, it's going to be a good one. I'm actually really, really super excited for this game. There are a lot of injuries that are going on both sides, but it kind of opened up the door for certain players to actually produce at a very high end level. So let me go ahead and look at my show sheet real quick. And yeah, the injuries are absolutely brutal. The Falcons in the secondary, the Packers receivers, at least I will say the Falcons are getting a couple offensive linemen back, so that's good. Get that depth on that offensive line, try and stop the Smith brothers over there for Green Bay. But when it comes to DFS, right, and it comes to the players that I am looking at actually playing, oh man, it's going to be very, very interesting. With the Falcons, we're looking at Keanu Neal, Ricardo Allen, AJ Terrell, Darqueze Dennard. They're all out in their secondary. That's 4 out of 5 of the starters in the secondary completely out. Now they are getting Sherfield back, but he wasn't good last year. Last year he was absolutely brutal. He allowed 110 passer rating and 2 touchdowns while in coverage last year. I don't like that at all. So I don't think that that's really a great addition, although it kind of does help out with the depth at least. Meanwhile, with the Packers, we have St. Brown, Equinemius St. Brown. He's still on IR from the beginning of the year. Adams is out. Lazard is out. So yeah, Lazard with that bizarre injury was just really, really interesting. So, oh man, this could create a huge, huge opportunity with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So with his receivers and the wide receiver injuries all over the place, the system that LaFleur wants to run, we should see a ton. We should see a ton of 21 and 12 personnel this week, or tonight, I should say, which means very few 3 wide receiver sets. So, I mean, even with Lazard, MVS, and Adams out, they only ran 11 personnel on 36% of their plays so far this season. That's second least behind the 49ers with 35%. So I'm loving the other pass catching options outside of the wide receiver position over here for Green Bay. Robert Tonyan is huge for me. He's a quarterback turned wide receiver turned tight end. So he's had 3 position changes since his freshman year at college. Man, he's starting to get it. You can really see it starting to click. And I think Aaron Rodgers really, really likes this guy. After playing quarterback to start his career, right, he dominated as wide receiver. His final year, he had 699 yards with 10 touchdowns and only 11 games for a small school, which is Indiana State University. After he realized that he wouldn't test well at the combine, probably wouldn't be drafted as wide receiver, he transitioned again, which caused him to go undrafted. But he's 6'5", 236 pounds, and runs a 4.63 40 at the combine, which is absolutely impressive for a guy that size. He's kind of taken some time to develop. Obviously, the tight end position is typically one of the hardest positions to develop as a young guy coming out of college. But the fact that he had transitioned over from quarterback to wide receiver and then to tight end, we're finally seeing kind of coming into his own. He's gotten a touchdown in each of the past 2 weeks. And with Deion Jones over there as, the linebacker in coverage, I think he's going to have his hands full with Aaron Jones. So I'm actually looking forward to Robert Tonyan's matchup up against these safeties. I think it's going to be sexy. I think Robert Tonyan is going to have his way with these safeties. Jalen Hawkins actually has to come in. obviously with the injuries over there, and he's a 4th-round rookie. So, he's not the most polished individual. Kazi over there, he's good, but he's only 5'10". And we just talked about how Robert Tonyan's 6'5", 236. So I don't think that Kazi's going to be the guy to actually cover him over there. And he's going to have his hands full trying to, keep MVS from breaking the game open. So I love the upside here. I absolutely love the upside of Robert Tonyan. I think he's almost a must play in most cases, which, by the way, means that I'll have a lot of shares of Aaron Rodgers as well. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind that his upside might be a little bit limited, with his options. This could turn into a run-heavy game for the Packers as well. So I'm not locked into starting Aaron Rodgers in every single lineup, but Aaron Rodgers is looking great. He's looking phenomenal. I don't think I have to tell anybody that in 2020, but yeah, he'll be in most of my lineups, just not every single one. MVS is the guy that I'm stacking him with, along with Robert Tonyan. I trust MVS more than I trust Shepard or Wilson. I'm not a big fan of either one of those guys. And MVS, with that speed and the Falcons' just depleted secondary, could absolutely have an amazing game tonight. I'm looking forward to watching him go off for over 100 yards and potentially 2 touchdowns. I really like MVS. Now, when it comes to Shepard and Wilson, am I taking a couple shots on them? Probably not. I might have maybe one shot of each guy. Shepard's more of like the small slot top receiver, kind of like a gadget type player, and Wilson's more of like the outside possession guy. But I'm not loving either one. Like we talked about, there's going to be a lot of 12 personnel and a lot of 21 personnel. Not 11 personnel. I'm sorry, excuse me. I had to look at my show sheet again. Not 11 personnel, which allows for 3 wide receivers to be on the field. So yeah, I just don't think that either one of these guys are going to get a lot of opportunities. If I had to choose one, I might choose Wilson, but I'm going to stay away from these guys in most cases. I'd rather take shots on guys like DeGuara. If he does play, he might be injured, he might be out, and Sternberger. If DeGuara doesn't play, Sternberger becomes a huge ingredient into my DFS lineups. Like, he's going to be in there in quite a few of them, and I kind of like doing a double stack of Tonyan and DeGuara in one that I'm not going to be playing MVS in. I think that could be a very sneaky lineup that could win you big time money if you pick the other guys correctly. Jamal Williams as well is another big pick for me in DFS. Teams have targeted the running back 25 total times in the first 3 weeks up against the Falcons. That's crazy to me. Now, the Falcons have actually been pretty good overall. They've only allowed 5.7 yards per receptions, but receptions still matter, right? And Williams has these games where he finishes off with like 5, 6, 7 receptions for like 70 or 80 yards, and then gets like 40 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And it's the game that we want to pull our hair out because that we started Aaron Jones in that game. But, still, this could be that game. He's a very, very sneaky play. I like Jamal Adams to kind of sneak into these lineups, especially with the lack of weapons at wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers. Now, of course, I'm starting Aaron Jones in a lot of lineups. I don't care about the chalk. I think that he's probably going to be the most started player in terms of who's going into the captain spot, but I'm still going to take some shots on him. I don't know if I'll play him in as many captain spots as I would if he wasn't as chalky, but I'm still going to get him into my lineups and just hope that he does well, and doesn't completely just bomb it, and actually get some return on investment, just not too much return on investment, because then that's going to be the lineups where the captains end up crushing it. So, of course, I'm going to be starting him in this matchup. There's no one else on this offense. He is the supreme talent on this offense. Nobody's even close. I think that he could see, 30 touches or so this game. But I'm more interested in the X factor, right? There's an X factor out there that not a lot of people are talking about. And, God, man, he could end up, having potentially a touchdown on an 80-yard run, something along those lines. That's going to be Tyler Ervin. I love it, man. I know that he's a gadget guy, but he's getting looks, here and there. And with his 4.41 speed and a pieced together secondary, when we talk about the Falcons, it's possible that he breaks off a big, big run or even, a shovel pass, something along those lines, while being used as that gadget guy. And I think that if it turns into a shootout, like I believe this matchup could turn into, I think that you could actually see like a massive game where he gets, 5 or 6 different opportunities and he could take one to the house. I really like Tyler Ervin. If you are looking for that kind of sneaky play, that like front heavy loaded lineup where you're playing all the high expensive guys, and then you need a cheap guy to make it happen, I think that Tyler Ervin could be that guy. But in order for it to turn into a shootout, if it does turn into a shootout, that means that Matt Ryan is going to have an amazing game, right? Matt Ryan, he's actually been kind of questionable so far this year. And I know that sounds weird because he's put up 2 massive games up against Seattle and up against Dallas, I believe. But I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at his numbers, and he's 20th in deep ball completion percentage while having Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. That doesn't make much sense to me. He's only 14th in red zone completion percentage. Play action completion percentage, he's 19th in. True completion percentage, which is the shocking thing for me, that kind of eliminates drop balls and throwaways, he's 30th. Matt Ryan is 30th in true completion percentage. So it's a little bit of a head scratcher, to be honest with you. And the most astounding thing outside of the true completion percentage is he only has a 69.5% catchable pass rate, which is 28th. Now, the volume's been there, and I think the volume is going to be there in the future. But that is something that we should monitor moving forward when it comes to, playing Matt Ryan. Is the volume going to be there? Because if it's not, I don't know if he's going to be that great. I mean, he's already thrown 8 interceptable passes so far this year, which tied for 5th. Meanwhile, he has 10 danger plays, which is 6th, right? So Matt Ryan, for me, if the volume's there, which I believe it's going to be this week, then I'm playing him. But if it's not, I'm a little bit skeptical of his, potential performance. So if I do end up playing him this week, of course, you have to play a couple of these wide receivers, but the wide receivers are super, super banged up right now. I mean, they still think that, I believe, Calvin Ridley and Julio are expected to play, but they're both banged up, and they're talking about playing them in a very limited fashion. So yeah, it's going to be tough to sit here and expect big time numbers from these guys if they're only getting 60% of the snaps, 70% of the snaps compared to their normal, 95% snap share. But the good news, like I was talking about, is the Packers haven't been very good up against the pass. I mean, hell, they allowed almost 300 yards to Drew Brees without Michael Thomas, and he also threw 3 touchdowns against him. Now, I know a lot of that had to do with Alvin Kamara, but still, I mean, that's not good. It's not good at all. I mean, it's just not a good situation for the Packers secondary. But, let's bring up another fact when we talk about a bad situation. Jair Alexander actually could miss out. He had a random knee injury that popped up on like Saturday, I believe. He didn't practice. So, yeah, I mean, him and Chandon Sullivan have been the only 2 bright spots in this secondary. The secondary has been absolutely atrocious. If Alexander misses time, I'm thinking that they get Josh Jackson in there and leave Chandon Sullivan in the slot, because Chandon Sullivan has been excellent in the slot, and that's where, the Falcons use a lot of their, or I guess get a lot of their production out of is the slot. Russell Gage pretty much only lines up in the slot, and then Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley love to motion the slot. So I think that they should, at least, I don't know if they do, but I think they should leave Chandon Sullivan in the slot to defend against that position. And if that's the case, this makes it even tougher trying to figure out which of these 3 wide receivers you want to play. Like if Chandon Sullivan is actually as good as he's coming off to be, which I've talked to a few different people who are big time, Green Bay fans, and they're saying that he looks really, really good. And he could be one of the best slot cornerbacks in the league so far this year. So if Russell Gage only lines up the slot and has to face up against Chandon Sullivan, does he have the athletic profile that allows him to beat Chandon Sullivan? And I don't know if that's the case. So I think that I'm actually going to have an equal share, especially with the ownership being on Russell Gage pretty heavily, or at least estimated to be pretty heavily. I'm thinking that you got to take shots, pretty much equal shots on each one of these guys. I'm not going to have multiple Falcons receivers in the same lineup, though. I know I'm expecting a shootout, but with limited snap opportunities and Russell Gage face Chandon Sullivan, I'm not going to have them all. I think that the best, I guess, kind of strategy going forward with this is taking shots with each one of these guys separately. I will have sprinkled in some lineups where I do have 2 of these receivers, but it's not going to be a lot of lineups. Like it might be, maybe 3 lineups tops with different, different combinations of each. But my favorite player, or my favorite wide receiver, I should say, even though he's banged up in this situation, is actually going to be Calvin Ridley. They move him all over the lineup. He plays on the outside, plays on the inside. He's all over the place. But he's that deep target guy in this offense. He's leading the NFL right now in air yards and deep targets. He has 10 deep targets already. So I'm thinking that he could absolutely be the guy that goes off. And the Packers, man, the Packers are tied for 5th in explosive passing play percentage allowed, with 10% of the opposing team's passes going for over 15 yards. So I'm thinking that Calvin Ridley could have a hell of a game this week, even while he's banged up. Now, we got to be close. We got to be careful. We got to pay attention to the injury reports. But the Packers allowed Thielen on the outside to produce, Marvin Hall on the outside to produce, Marvin Jones on the outside to produce, and Emmanuel Sanders on the outside to produce. So I'm rolling with Ridley in quite a few lineups if he's playing. And I'm not saying that you should fade Russell Gage like hard and not play him at all. Same thing with Julio Jones. But out of these 3 wide receivers, I think I'm going to lean on Calvin Ridley and hope for a couple big time plays. That's the route that I'm going with this. Now, when it comes to the tight end position, the Packers have actually been pretty solid up against tight end so far. They haven't allowed any touchdowns. I mean, Hawkinson had like 62 yards, I believe. So it makes me a little bit nervous playing Hurst, but he has had 2 touchdowns over the past 2 weeks. And I think that he's going to see a huge uptick in targets this upcoming week as well. I think that he can find the end zone. I really do. I like Hurst as a filler type guy, where you're pretty much have your base set, your stack set up, and now you need to figure out who to add to it. And whether you're playing Aaron Rodgers, whether you're playing Matt Ryan, whether you're playing both, I think that he could be a filler at the tail end of your lineup. Now he is a little bit pricey, so he's not like just a free square type guy. But I'm going to be playing I'm going to be playing with him. I'm going to be playing him. All right, now on to Gurley. Gurley's workload's insane. And I think that we expected this, when they went out and they grabbed Gurley. We also expected this offensive line to be so hard, and that's pretty much what they've given. However, this volume, 14 red zone attempts in the first 3 weeks. 14 zone in 3 weeks. Crazy to me. The crazier part is he only has 2 touchdowns so far on those 14 red zone attempts. So that makes me a little bit nervous with that offensive line, but they are getting some of their offensive linemen back. A few of their guys are going to be healthy. I believe their former first-round pick, their tackle is going to be coming back. So, we'll see if he actually gets in some work, but the volume's there. The volume's there. We're hoping for a couple goal line carries, and he's getting them. Teams are destroying the Packers defense with the running back through both the air and the ground, to be honest with you. But, yeah, I like Gurley. Now, when it comes to the receiving portion, he hasn't been getting a lot of receiving work, but we saw Swift take I think it was 40 receptions for 60 yards. We saw Alvin Kamara completely destroy this team in the air. And then Alexander Mattison had a pretty good week in the air. I think he had 40 receiving yards or so. Meanwhile, Peterson had a good game on the ground. So did Cook. So did Kamara. Once again, Kamara just crushed them all together. Just destroyed souls out there. But I like this to be a solid play with Gurley for cash games, and I'm thinking I'm going to sprinkle him in a few tournaments. I did a study, and I can't find it anywhere. I literally, all my notebooks are just a big clusterfuck, and I don't have anything organized. But I did a study, and it's somewhere in my notebooks over here. When a wide receiver goes out, the primary benefactor outside of the direct replacement of that player, when they go out and they don't play as often, the biggest benefactor is the running back. So I might do this again. I might actually compile this data again once we get to week 7 or 8 or so, and we have more data. But Todd Gurley, he's only seen 1 or 2 receptions a game. I think that he could see 5 or 6 receptions this upcoming week. He could benefit the most from Calvin Ridley sitting, from Julio Jones sitting, and from, of course, Russell Gage seeing that slot coverage from Sullivan. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think that he could have an opportunity and he could go off. Now, I'm not playing Gurley in a ton of matchups, but if I could do a Calvin Ridley, Todd Gurley, and Matt Ryan stack, I don't hate that stack. I actually kind of like it, because you're going pure upside here. If they score 4 times and Gurley gets 2 touchdowns and Ridley gets 2 touchdowns, you're going to be winning a lot of money. Winning a lot of money. Now, let's see. After a week like we saw last week from Brian Hill, I think he's another solid pivot option, and I don't know if he's going to have a ton of ownership. Now, he did have a big week like we just said last week, But I don't know, man. He's kind of starting to get used as a Bryant or as a third down, type role. He's looking at way more explosive than Todd Gurley's looking. He's looking a lot quicker, shiftier, and he was getting a ton of hype in training camp and towards the tail end of last year as well. I think that he has a solid chance to put up very, very good numbers and a potential chance to put up great numbers. This defense with Green Bay ranks 30th up against the running back. So, yeah, I'm doing it. And in other words, you're taking the over if you believe that stuff like this can happen. For flyer purposes, I'm not big on any of these backup receivers. Zacchaeus, I think that's how you say it, and Powell are more like slot gadget guys. You're talking about, guys that are 5'8", don't have a lot of speed, have a little bit of agility, but they're not going to break off an 80-yard, reception type thing. At least I don't believe that they will without having blown coverage. Is it possible to happen with Green Bay? Always, but I don't think that that's going to be the situation. And then Christian Blake, he was thought to be the third starting wide receiver last week for Atlanta. That was who all the beat reporters was, saying, oh, this is going to be the guy that's getting the snaps with Julio out. But he only got 6 snaps last week. So, and he still hasn't seen a target, by the way. I'm not going to waste my fab. I'm not going to waste my budget over here, my bankroll, on playing multiple lineups with Christian Blake, Zacchaeus, and Powell. Those guys just don't do it for me. There are already too many variables this week to account for with the injuries and how the defenses are going to line up and the combinations of these wide receivers for Atlanta that you're going to have to play. I don't want to go out there and just blow my bankroll trying to come up with combinations and going for these guys. Same thing with Stoker and Ito Smith. I'd rather take shots on guys like Tyler Ervin, and I got to see the pricing for Brian Hill, but if Brian Hill's priced down, I'd rather take shots on him too than take shots on the guys this week in that $200 to $1,000 range. So, yeah, anyways, you guys enjoying the jet noise? Guys, this is actually going to wrap it up for us. This was just a quick DFS episode for tonight where I spent, 6 hours trying to put together a 20-minute long podcast. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Yeah, if you guys want to go check out my content, go check it out at linktr.ee/fantasy intervention. Once again, that's linktr.ee/fantasy intervention. We will be having some more content coming out. I got my recap show tomorrow, so make sure you guys check that out. And then Wednesday, we have our Thursday DFS matchup going live. And then, of course, Mike is coming on live with me. Wahoo. Oh, and we have Beezy as one of our special guests. Get excited for that, guys. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for listening. And thank you for letting me intervene with your fantasy football life. I'm out.